Okay, good evening, dear students. Last week we discussed about bystander effect, right? And I will review again about what we have already discussed. Okay, or discussions about the bystander effect. That bystander effect is a phenomena when individuals do not provide assistance or help in emergency situations when the other people present. There are three cause bystander effect. The first one is diffusions of responsibility, social influence, and also evaluation of apprehensions. Diffusion responsibility because the presence of others people at the scenes or emergency situations of the accident in the incidents. And social influence is the need to behave in appropriate and socially acceptable manners. And the evaluation apprehension, individuals tend to fear that the assistance or help that they are provided will be negatively perceived by other observers. This is the three causes of the bystander effect. And last week, we also have reviewed the papers about how the bystander effect can explain the phenomena in business. And I've been download some resumes for the students, for example, from Mr. Dermes. Okay, do Mr. Dermes is already joined in this class? Would you mind to present your summary, Mr. Dermes, about our paper whistleblowing intention in bystander effects? Mr. Dermes, do you have you joined? Not yet. Okay. Okay. Next, maybe Miss Harsini or Mr. Harsini. Have you joined?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Miss Harsini, would you mind to present your summary about our paper for last week about whistleblowing and bystander effects, please?
Okay, ma'am. This study examines the whistleblowing intentions among lower tier employees, especially examines whether an extremely administered reporting channel increases whistleblowing intentions compared to an internally administrated one. The results suggest that whistleblowing intentions are higher than when the reporting channel is administered externally than when it is administered internally. It also found that externally administered reporting channel mitigates the negative effect of bystanders on whistleblowing intentions. So where implications administers reporting channel are being discussed. In the present study, we examined whistleblowing intentions among lower tier employees. We investigate the extent to which an externally administrated supporting channel increases. It has been suggested that reporting channel by third party may represent a stronger procedural safeguard anatomy and avoids the appearance of impropriety. Together, the results provided that with the notion lower tier employees may not be concerned as upper management about disclosing fraud occurrences to outsiders. It can be found that the negative effect of bystanders is moderated by use of externally administrated reporting channel. It provides further evidence of differences in effectiveness between internally and externally administered reporting channels in promoting whistleblowing. That's all.
Okay, thank you very much, Miss Harsin. Miss
Thank
Harsin,
you.
would you mind to give some comment or review or feedback about this paper, or maybe about this topic about the bystander effect? Would you mind to give the opinion or comment about these topics or this paper? Miss Harsini, would you mind to give some comment or review about this paper or topics maybe?
Nothing, ma'am.
Nothing's okay. Thank you very much. And now, is that Mr. Darmes has already joined? Not yet. And the third paper is from Miss or Miss Fardani. Have Miss Fardani joined this class? Miss Fardani? Would you mind to present your summary? Or Mr. Dermes, maybe? Because I have been download from 3 students, Mr. Dermes, Miss Harsini, also Miss Fardani. Would you mind to present your summary, Miss Fardani or Mr. Dermes? Or maybe the other student will want to present our paper about bystander effects. I think Miss Fardani has already joined. Miss Fardani, would you mind to present your research, your summary about our research paper?
Background and hypothesis, vital.
Yes, I can hear you. Miss Fardani, would you mind to present?
Okay, ma'am.
Okay.
Western blouncing,
Yes.
brevest seriousness of wrongdoing and vital blouncing intention. Vital blouncing is defined as a disclosure by organizational members, former or current of illegal, immoral, or illegitimate practices under the control of their employees to persons or organizations that may be able to effect action. Examples of vital blooming and if an employee report wrongdoing that they believe is in an public interest, it is known as whistleblowing. Whistleblowing examples can include criminal activities such as theft or unethical or unjust behavior in the workplace, including racist, sexist, or homophobic behavior. Reporting channel, internal channels that are available, or letter, fax, email, or a telephone hotline, and web-based whistle-based systems. Latter has a advantage that reports can be supported securely and anonymously. It is an consent document based on research that typically analyzes a situation and sometimes make a recommendation. Types of reports include memos, meeting minutes, expense reports, audit reports, closure reports, progress reports, justification reports, compliance reports, annual reports, and feasibility reports. Examples, business people on the other hand think of sales report, marketing report, progress report, social media report, bystanding effort. Bystanding effort, the innovating influence on the presence of others on the person's willingness to help someone in need. Research has shown that even in an emergency, a bystander is less likely to expect help when he or she is a real or imagined presence of others than when he or she is alone. Example, Hitler Venero's case, most frequently cited example of a bystander effort is introductory psychologically textbooks is spiritual murder of a young woman named Gertrude Kitty Genovine. Wrongdoer's power status can also influence whitelisting investigation via perceived seriousness and personal cost. It is often measured in terms of a wrongdoer position in an organization which reflect basis of power or the dependence of the organization on the individual.
Okay, thank you very much, Miss Fardani. Very
Thank
good
you, ma'am.
summary. Yes, Miss Fardani, would you mind to maybe give a comment or suggestions about this paper or also our topics discussion about bystander effect? Do you have any comment?
Topic is
Yes,
easy to understand, ma'am.
easy to understand. And have you maybe some have you see or experience or maybe see some bystander effect in your environments maybe?
Oh, ma'am.
No. Okay. Okay. Okay, thank you very much, Miss
you, ma'am.
Fardani. Thank you very much for the great summary. And maybe the last one is Mr. Darwes. Have you joined? Not yet. Maybe the other student want to present your paper, please. I think Mr. Darmes has already joined. Do you want to present your summary?
Good evening.
Yes, good evening. Do you want to present your summary, Mr.? This is your summary, right?
Ma'am, yes, ma'am.
Yes. Okay, please.
Ma'am, 1 minute, ma'am.
Yes. We will wait.
Ma'am, yes, ma'am. This is the paper which talks about the whistleblowing intention of low-level employees and an effect of reporting channel bystanders and wrongdoer power status. And in this paper, which talks about whistleblowers who has been awarded with the persons for the year by famous magazine, and especially for the this paper which shows that the research the low level employees who has an intention to expose the mistakes that committed by the high level institution, and they collect lot of samples for it, and at the end of the results they shows that they use the mediation analysis and normal theory test, and the low level employees whistleblowing intention is higher when their reporting channel is administered externally by the third parties instead of internally. Ma'am, that's all, ma'am.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Dermes. Would you mind to give some review or comment about this paper or these topics, maybe, Mr. Dermes, about bystander effects?
Ma'am, yes, ma'am. From this paper, I understood that the employee's intention when they are in a low level they may be more fear to expose the mistakes that committed by the higher level institutions. But if the institution is managed externally, they are ready to show their mistakes. But if the management which is managed by internal persons, they fear to exhibit the mistakes committed by the organization, ma'am. From this, the intention of the employees, I would able to understand it, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Dermes, about your very good review about this paper. Now, my dear students, we will continue our topics about the topic material today is we will discuss about the halo effects. Yes, I think this is the personal psychological science, but we can use this theory to explain what's happened in our business context. Actually, halo effects is the tendency of a person's thinking to provide general judgment and provide judgment based on the general feelings or judgment. The halo effect refers to how an individual general perceptions create a positive or negative impressions and obscure their specific characteristic. The halo effects proposed by Edward Thorndike, psychologist actually, he undertook a study published in 1920. In his research, he asked two commanders in soldiers to rate their subordinates in terms of physical quality, like for example, the grooming, the energy, physical strength, and the mental, emotional, and social qualities such as intellectual, leadership, and responsibility. And Thorndike found that if a soldier was rated highly one criterions, he would also be rated highly on the other criteria. For example, if the soldier have physical strength, and then he also considered it to be intelligence, good social quality, etc. So there is a soldier while soldier who is not considered irresponsible also tend to score the level of physical strength and energy. Then conclude that the halo effect refer to how general perceptions of the individual create a positive or negative impressions and obscure the specific characteristic. So if in general we conclude that somebody is good looking maybe, then we ignore the other specific characteristics. So we conclude that he is good in all criteria. This is the halo effects that Edward Thorndike is found. Halo effect, how halo effect is example in our real life. For example, teacher assessment of students. If the teacher assess that student A is good behavior, then student A is also considered good in all aspect. For example, she also good behavior, clever, diligence, and etc. The halo effect will affect objectively in assessing students' performance. The other example of halo effect is maybe you already you have remember about the talent search. So when the judge and the audience only judge the event, show contestant from their general appearance, then when they got a halo effect, those who look ordinary, then their ability can also consider it normal. This is the example in the talent search in singing. Maybe you still remember. Maybe this is a search form. Britain Got Talent. This is Susan Boyle. They singing, and when she is sing, and in the British Got Talent, and the judge get the halo effect when he or she valued for the Susan. This is the example.
So, Glasgow's got a great theatre, a lively crowd, and a great atmosphere. So far, though, there's just one thing missing: talent. Yes, tensions are high backstage as everyone wonders where that talent is going to come from. But next up is a contestant who thinks she has what it takes to put Glasgow on the map.
My name is Susan Boyle. I'm nearly 48, unemployed, still looking. And I'm going to sing for you on Britain's Got Talent today.
Nervous?
Yeah, sure, no.
Yeah, well, that's not surprising.
I'm thinking, you know, the one that I live in London, my cat's called Pebbles. But I've never been married. Never been kissed. Oh, shame. But it's not an advert.
And have you done this for many a year?
Since I was 12.
Since you're 12?
I've always wanted to perform in front of a large audience. I'm going to make that audience rock.
What's your name, darling?
My name is Susan Boyle.
Okay, Susan, where are you from?
I am from Blackburn near Bathgate, West Lothian.
It's a big town.
It's a sort of collection of villages. I have to think there.
And how old are you, Susan?
I am 47. And that's just one side of me.
Okay, what's the dream?
I'm trying to be a professional singer.
And why hasn't it worked out so far, Susan?
I've never been given the chance before, but here's hoping it will change.
Okay, and who would you like to be as successful as?
Elaine Page.
Elaine Page. What are you going to sing tonight?
I'm going to sing I Dreamed a Dream from the Miserables.
Yeah, big song.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I dreamed I know.
Okay. Is the sound is clear in your side? The video or the sound?
And the song is not audible, ma'am.
It's okay. You can hear the sounds of the video. Yes or no?
No, ma'am.
No, the sound is not clear in your side. I already stop from the video, but the previous video is the sound is clear in your side or not? Not.
Ma'am, up to her explaining about her age, and she started the song, ma'am. Up to that, it was clear, ma'am.
Okay, yes. Actually, this is a moment is the British Got Talent. There are participants who names is Susan Boyle, 47 years old. And by the time that he got in on the stage, all judges and also audience were underestimate about the ability to singing. Because they only judge by her general appearance, and the judge and audience are exposed to the halo effects. This is the example of halo effect that Susan, who has ordinary appearance has a normal audience will judge she also have normal ability for singing, but unpredictables that but when Susan sings, they realize that their judgment is wrong. They have an experience of halo effects. And this is the example how halo effect can influence our decision making. The other, okay, I will continue for the PPT. Yes, this is the example of halo effect, the assessment of talents. The other example is management assessment of employee. In the work environment, halo effect is often in the most common bias. Halo effect affect the superior assessment of the subordinate performance. For example, that the boss rate his employee on one characteristic only of the worker, for example, enthusiasm, and let the assessment affect the superior assessment of all overall characteristic of the employee performance just based on the one characteristic. Even though the employee does not have knowledge or ability to do job successfully. This is the example how halo effect can make a bias in our decision making and assessment ability of somebody. And this is the example of usage of halo effect. For example, in product marketing, the halo effect also beside halo effect can have make a bias in decision making, but halo effect also can be used for the positive things. For example, halo effect can effective for company that rely heavily on the image or brand to increase the demand. It is also effective for company in competitive industry where there are many companies offering the same service with the marginal differences. Companies that produce the multiple product also use the halo effect to establish themselves in certain industry. For example, if one product that from the company can become a leader in the industry, then the trust in the brand spread to the other product of the company. And halo effect also can explain why choosing the attractive, charismatic, and good advertising artists is the right way to increase the sales. And the other example of halo effect, for example, is in interview when we got a school or job. Maybe the halo effect is very influent in the job interview. You may hear that horror story that someone who is a good at class doesn't get a job and fail in the interview test after being able to pass written test or physical test. Meanwhile, his classmate who had academic ability below can pass the interview test. There is a tendency that the attractive people will easily to get a job because of this appearance. This is also I have maybe a video to explain about the halo effect.
In the battle for attention, facts are usually not as effective as emotions. The more emotionally invested we are, the less critical and objectively observant we become. Simon Sinek, best-selling author and public speaker, is famous for saying, "People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it." And one of the most effective ways to show this why is through vivid storytelling. And advertisers are well aware of this. This is why companies like Apple and Nike try to tell inspiring stories backed by dramatic music in their commercials. Stories that often have nothing to do with the product.
The bonds we find here should run past these lines.
It's been a long time.
One of the greatest jobs of marketing that the universe has ever seen is Nike. Remember, Nike sells a commodity. They sell shoes. And yet, when you think of Nike, you feel something different than a shoe company. In their ads, as you know, they don't ever talk about the products. They don't ever tell you about their air soles and why they're better than Reebok's air soles. What does Nike do to their advertising? They honor great athletes and they honor great athletics.
When they talk about the greatest team in the history of the sport, make sure it's your team. If you have only one hand, don't just watch football, play it at the highest level. And if you're a girl from Compton, don't just become a tennis player. Become the greatest athlete ever.
As they say, when emotions jump, intelligence drops. And this is evolutionarily ingrained in our neural hardwiring. But we must be careful here, because influencers, corporations, and public speakers have gotten really good at manufacturing emotions through dramatic storytelling. Besides storytelling, another powerful form of emotional influence is the halo effect. This is a cognitive bias where we judge an opinion based on our impression of the person saying it. A typical example of this is when attractive people are perceived to be smarter, funnier, and more likable than they really are. But it's not just about looks. It's the way we project ourselves, our confidence, composure, and charisma. The halo effect makes us more receptive to ideas we normally wouldn't entertain, driving us to make emotional oversimplification based on poor evidence. And it's all around us. It shows up in our schools, where teachers favor certain students because of physical characteristics, giving them more attention and thus increasing their likelihood for success later in life. It shows up in politics, where we tend to vote for more attractive candidates in our elections, as well as in our judiciary system, where good-looking people receive lighter sentences. The halo effect has an equally powerful presence in our healthcare and banking systems, which is quite scary. It all comes back to this conflict between emotion and reason. Consider the story of Elizabeth Holmes and the scandal of Theranos. At 30, Holmes had an estimated net worth of over $4 billion because of her stake in her blood testing startup, Theranos, making her the youngest female self-made billionaire at the time. Eventually, the public realized that Theranos was a fraud and that the core technology of the company didn't work. The early success of Theranos was largely because of the compelling aura of Holmes. Her confidence reminded many wide-eyed investors of a young female Steve Jobs. And even without the working product and shady secretive business practices, many fell for her vision without looking critically at her claims.
Yes, this is the example how effect can influence in the business process. For example, in marketing, like Apple, and also there are some when we make a wrong judgment about the homes that actually she is will predict become the next Steve Jobs, and then actually they have involved in the frauds of the company. This is the example of halo effects in our daily life. And also yes, and also how to avoid the halo effects is be aware of your judgment. It is important to realize that your judgment can be wrong, and also give the first impressions a second chance. So if you have make a evaluation about someone, give the impression the second chance. Try to be critical of the first impression that you have get, and try to back up your feelings about the object based on actual data. If you have a trouble come up with reason why you rate an objective favorably and unfavorability, then give the second chance. So be aware of your judgment and give your first impressions about someone the second chance. And this is, I think, the good article of paper about is halo effect. Do the halo effect only influence for professional or only for the common people? This paper title is "Do Fine Feathers Make a Fine Bird? The Influence of Attractiveness on the Fraud Risk Judgment by Internal Auditor." This paper actually is very good, has been written by Elrics et al. The study wants to investigate whether internal auditors are prone to appearance-related bias or halo effect, or whether they correct it due to their expertise and motivations. Actually, this paper examined does the halo effect influence auditor decision making. I think this is the good paper that the background is management frequently face asset misappropriations or frauds, and so the fraud detection and prevention is a significant concern. And because of the fraud, organization may lose 5% on their annual revenue due to the misappropriations of asset, corruption, fraudulent financial reporting, and the role of internal auditor is to detect the fraud on the misappropriations of the asset and corruptions. And the main key of the internal auditor is the independency and objectively. However, the assessment of the probability of fraud often involves human interactions between the internal auditor and the individual that being assessed. Therefore, because the interactions between internal auditor and the individual that being assessed will be decreased the independency or objectively. So the halo effect will explain does auditor have affected by halo effect when they do their jobs. And the research objective is to assess whether internal auditor operate objectively and independently and in accordance with the two main pillar, which is of the auditing, which is the independency and also the objectivity. And the theoretical background and also the hypothesis. Actually, this research have two group participants. The first participant is naive subjects or unexperienced people, and the second group is internal auditor. For the naive subjects, they propose the hypothesis that higher physical attractiveness of the suspect persons in the company will be negatively related to the associated fraud responsibility. And in hypothesis 2, this hypothesis is for professional judgment for internal auditor. They propose the hypothesis that internal auditor will correct their judgment, which is biased by physical attractiveness to meet their objectively requirement. So this is the research method. Actually, this paper is good. They develop face creations to make the attractive face and versus unattractive face. A young and old facial stimuli retrieved from the larger database, and attractive or unattractive making of young woman man face based on the validation of perceived attractiveness from facial stimuli made in stage of before. And then they conduct the rating procedures. The rating procedure was implemented in survey online to maximize the number of rating stimulus per set. Raters were asked to provide objective of the attractiveness of this face, which one each face they rate the attractiveness of this face with Likert scale. 1 is very unattractive and 7 is very attractive. This is they create the face based on their attractiveness. And then this next stage is after obtaining the attractiveness rating from the respondent or respondent, then each of the 4 sample regression technique were used to generate attractive and also unattractive male and female face per age group. The final stimuli differing in attractiveness, age, and gender create for the experiment. So this phase actually is based on developing stimuli and based on the survey from the sample. The sample has asked to assess which the face is attractive and unattractive. So this is the result of the classifying the face based on the attractiveness. For example, this in the young face, female this picture and male in this picture is more attractive than the right side, and then this appearance of the face is used to the next experiments. The first is validations, verifying the attractiveness manipulation procedures, stimulants that are perceived as attractive or unattractive. And they use the independent observer for Amazon's mechanical to assess, to ask or to indicate which of the two faces was more attractive. And the participants, there are two group participants, internal auditors and naive subject. Naive subjects represent the bachelor and master degree students for German university. And the experimental design research developed in comprehensive research instrument involving case regarding internal auditor from previous research, Cinder and all 2012, and this case provide participant with transcript between CEO and CFO. And the suspect of fraud, and the employee that suspected conduct the fraud name is Smith. And then the experiment procedure, the participant instruct to assume that they were corporate CAE, then asked to several questions from this perspective. And final stimuli use objectively generated face based on the data. And research attempt to present that Smith, employee that suspect a fraud, feature in a clear but natural way, and so they provide participant with Smith personal file to support them. And the analysis, they use linear mixed model to test the hypothesis. This is the example of the case that the researcher used to examine the halo effect. They display the participant give this face to display this face to the participant. This name is, the employee is Smith, somebody personal of employee that suspect fraud in the employee, and duration on play 5 years, etc. And the participant of this research asked to answer these questions. For example, how do you assess the probability that Mr. or Mrs. Smith is responsible for the issue or possible frauds? And based on this, based on the data and looking for the Smith profile, and so that for the other example is, for example, in your opinion, how important the internal audit makes objective judgment? And also they asked about the attractiveness of this figure. How the attractive do you find Miss or Mr. Smith? Not very attractive and very attractive. And this is the experiment design for this research, and the result is the naive subject associated with greater certainty of guilty with the physical and attractive suspect, and conversely associated with lower certainty of guilt with physically attractive suspect. So, on the other hand, there is no evidence that professional judgment of the internal auditor have a tendency to judge suspect based on their attractiveness. So, the halo effect only impact for the naive subject or unprofessional person, but not impact for the professional persons. This is the result of this study that the naive subject associate with greater certainty of that Mr. Smith that unattractive have guilty experience with physically unattractive suspect, and conversely associate with lower certainty of guilty with physically unattractive suspect. And the conclusions about this paper is the results show that physically attractive effect and therefore harms, especially for the naive subject. On the other hand, this danger can be eliminated by provided there is sufficient motivations and also expertises. The internal auditor assessment is not always influenced by attractiveness of the client. This finding positively reflect one of the profession core value or objectively. Furthermore, the result for participant internal auditor underscore of the important professional qualification and training, because the level of qualification as well as the level of experience promote an ambiguous and objective decision making. Yes, this is the conclusion of this paper, that actually this paper is very good. The experiment design is very good. They use the face simulations to assess the attractiveness and unattractiveness of the guilty persons. Okay, this is the example of the research paper about the halo effect in our business setting, especially in auditor decision making. Yes, is there any question? Actually, this research is good. How the halo effect phenomena can explain auditor and also naive person in makes a judgment in decision making. Is there any questions or comment maybe? Now?
No, ma'am.
Not yet. Okay, maybe because there are no questions or discussions, I have one more video. I am very happy to display about the video because it makes it easier to understand about the theory. This is the video about the halo effect also.
The impression you create is affected by the way you look. We tend to think beautiful people are more intelligent, popular, confident, and better at everything from their jobs to flying a plane. And if you can create a favorable impression, you can create advantages for yourself. You're more likely to get what you want. It might be a job, it might be popularity, or it might be the control you have over the people around you. Meet Ruth and Rebecca. Rebecca's classically attractive. Ruth's more on the plain side. They're going to demonstrate that how you look affects how you're treated. They're going to struggle up staircases at opposite ends of Liverpool Street Station in London with heavy bags, and we'll be filming in this workman's hut. First up, Ruth. How long before a knight in shining armor rescues this damsel in distress? last, but by 2 women, and it took 45 seconds. Now Rebecca's turn. How long before she's rescued?
Would you mind? Just shattered. I'm just trying to get to the top of those stairs there. Can you do the other one at the same time?
All of 8 seconds.
Oh, it's just very kind of you.
Ruth is occasionally saved, but it takes longer. On average, 70 seconds.
Stand up.
Rebecca's average, 24 seconds.
Just start by these phones here would be great. Thanks.
You'd be forgiven for thinking that this caveman behavior is more about sex than chivalry.
Yeah, pretty girl leading bags carrying upstairs. I'm a sucker for that sort of thing. Every time. It's from my grandfather on time. He was a charmer too.
But there's more to it than that.
Thanks.
We have a tendency to think highly of beautiful people.
They are very, very delicate. Sorry. Family heirlooms, would you believe? Bringing them back from my mum.
And we want to be near them, as if some of their glories will reflect onto us.
Have you got a few minutes to spare? Because
Yes, this is the other example about the halo effects. Okay, dear students, from our topics discussions today, is there any discussions about the halo effects? And actually, I have paper, good paper also. Actually, this is also the other paper examples about the halo effects. How does corporate social responsibility engagements influence the word of mouth on the Twitter or WOM on the Twitters, evidence from airlines industry. Actually, this is our reading materials for the next week's, our last meeting in the next week, maybe on Monday or Friday. I just waiting for the schedule from Prof. Kartikeyan. Okay, students, is there any is there any questions, or maybe somebody want to give a comment about this topic, our topics? No? Okay. Okay, if there is no questions, maybe, or somebody, students, is there any one of you wants to present your previous summary, maybe about the bystander effects? Maybe Miss Subasri? Mr. or Miss Subasri, maybe? Do you want to present your summary? No? Okay, if not, okay, I think this is enough for today because we already finished our topics about the halo effects, and I will post for the Google Classroom our last reading materials for the next week about the halo effects. How halo effect can influence the word of mouth on Twitter. I think this is a good paper, and you can replicate it as your thesis, maybe in your master degree. Thank you, dear students. I thank you very much for your participations today to present your summary of this paper. Very good summary. I think that I hope you can learn from this psychological theory to explain how this theory can explain in the business phenomena. So we get the physiological theory, psychological theory, and then use this theory to explain in our business context. I hope you enjoyed this meeting and also this theory. And thank you very much for your participation. I will end this meeting. Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you, Prof.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. I will end this meeting. Thank you.